I'm very pleased at this time that I can welcome to the show from the podcast, one of the longer running podcasts that's out there, and probably one of the first of the movie-based shows out there, and that's Mr. Dan McCoy from the Flophouse. But also, I'm sorry, stepped in.
That's right.
I also wanted to say that, but another interesting aspect about you is that your day job is a writer for The Daily Show, and you're head writer, if I'm not mistaken.
No, you are mistaken on that one. Elliot was head writer before John left, and then he took off basically just because he'd been there for 10 years or so and needed new challenges. And he has a child, so he wanted to spend a little time with his baby. But our head writer is Jubin Parang, who is quite a talented man. I would never dream of claiming that I could do what he does.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, I was giving more credit than I should, but still, being an Emmy Award winning. I think you're the first Emmy Award winning guest we've had on this show. However, you're not the only Emmy Award winning person in the film, because also Lionel apparently has won an Emmy.
Well, can you cut him?
Actually, no, he really gave.
Yeah.
He sold it. But so thank you for being on the show, and it's really great to have you on.
Thank you for having me.
So I want to talk a little bit about, because how I met you was, to me, sort of an interesting story, because it was through the film that we're making. My listeners pretty much already know about that we're making this documentary about podcasting, blah, 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 blah. But the day that we met, it felt like I was meeting you on what looked like on your face the worst day of your life.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I mean, listeners to my podcast know that I'm divorcing, but also more importantly, at least for that day, not more importantly overall, but definitely, but more importantly for that day, my previous cat, Lulu, who I had for 12 years and just was the apple of my eye, it was one day before we had to put her to sleep.
Sorry to hear that, Dan.
Oh, I didn't realize that it was the next day.
Yeah. Well, I had been trying to sort of nurse her back to health, but nothing had been doing anything. And so, yeah, while we were talking for the documentary, she was in the other room, sort of just in not the best condition.
Drowning in her own bile or something.
Yeah, she was, yeah. I toward the end, I was literally feeding her through a tube in her neck, which I don't recommend to anyone for any reason.
I actually have a cat that's... we have 4 cats, but one has... We find that each cat sort of bonds to each person. The one that sort of bonds to me, we used to call him Fatty, but now he's really just skin and bones. Ooh. So yeah. But he's fluffy, so he can pull it off still. But I know each day I can feel it, and there's something going on, and it's like one of those things where he's really old. He's 15 or 16 or something like that. Yeah. So it's like, if I bring him to the vet, do I really want to know? And then it's like $3,000. We might be able to fix him. I'm like, $3,000.
Yeah, I was willing to pay whatever I could at the time. I don't regret that I did it just because I know that I did everything I could for the cat.
Yeah.
But at the same time, once we had to put her to sleep, it was like, I was just throwing good money after bad.
Yeah. You're like, wow, didn't I just have her spleen dissected? And
Yeah.
I know. Believe me. Yeah.
But they're all worth it, though.
Yeah. Some days. There's some days where you want to claw hammer them, though, too.
Yeah, my current cat, as we were saying before we started recording, is climbing all over me right now. So if you hear any meowing on the recording or just a thump, which is probably Archie knocking over one of my microphones that I have set up for my own podcast. That's what's going on. So I apologize in advance for any sound issues that this rascal causes.
No problem.
Again, cats. The cat is a very common thing on our podcast. Again, I'm surprised the female has not worked her way in here yet. But at some point, there may be banging on that door, by the way. Nick, you're on door duty. So, and then she'll just come in and meow and let everyone know she's here. It's
Dan,
like she knows.
Dan, I have a question for you. With the name Archie, did you actually give Archie the name from the time you guys did the Great Switcheroo with the Adventure Zone with Archie Tapwell?
Oh, I didn't even think of that. So it's a much more.
Was it Riverdale?
It's a much more pretentious reason why I gave it. So my old cat Lulu didn't talk when we first got her, and I thought that she might be mute. Like she just did not say anything for several months, and so I named her Lulu after Louise Brooks, a silent movie star. And so Archie, I kind of wanted to keep the classic Hollywood thing going. So he's named after Cary Grant's real name, which was Archibald Leach. And I just thought Archie was a nice name for a cat. But it's such a... I feel like whenever I have to explain that I'm like the biggest asshole.
Well, now everyone knows.
Yeah.
So, Dan, the Flophouse was your brainchild, if I'm not mistaken.
That's true. Simon Fisher and Stuart Wellington were the first co-hosts with me, and Elliot actually came in on episode 9 after Simon left town. And the whole genesis of it was I really enjoyed watching bad movies with Stuart, and I thought he was a very funny man, and I thought his friend Simon was very funny to talk to at parties about bad movies or about any just bullshit that we could think of. And I knew that they had no ambitions towards comedy at all. So I thought it was a real shame that these people were so funny, but no one was taping them. And so it was partly that I was like, I got to get these guys out there in the world. And I'm kind of gratified at this, like 8 years later, that Stuart has become a really great performer, and he goes out on his own and does presentations at comedy shows around New York, usually film based. He's not like broken out into like stand up or anything, but he's sort of spread his wings as a comedy guy, which I think is one of the greatest things about doing the podcast.
Yes, he is very funny.
Oh, yeah.
And I love right away. I bonded with him because he's a tabletop gamer.
Yep.
So
he used to work for Games Workshop, right?
Yeah,
that's right.
Him and his dog, Ansel Elgort, on, what was it, Men, Women, and Children.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
We actually even talked about that.
With the name that sounds like a bunch of Scrabble tiles.
Or what was it Elliot was saying? It sounds like someone was trying to do a Crypt Keeper. It's like, Ansel Elgort.
Yeah, halfway to a pun.
See,
again, your best work, Crypty.
What I love about tabletop gamers is we are the last rung of nerddom that still is shat upon and spit upon. Like, people still make fun of us, like comic books. Come on. That's like chic.
And that's the greatly accepted and
exactly.
the norm now. It's
but you pull out a 20-sider, you clear a room.
And Stuart is a genuine dork. I mean, like, he sits at home painting his minifigs, and he goes to gaming conventions and what. But like, the funny thing about him is he also has like like a movie star's jawline and crow's feet around his eyes and whatever. So he's sort of the dreamboat of our podcast, even though he is a genuine nerd in a way that even over and above the two of us, I feel like. But he also has such a laid back attitude that he can make anything work for him.
I just started busting out minifigures just to that I painted just to show Nick that I'm the same dork. So there's a witness to it here. I'm busting out like a dragon and a troll and a tree and so.
Well, the stool like to know. It's like years ago I bought my buddy some like Space Marines from the old Warhammer 40K. So.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah. I was joining him in painting many a figure.
I had Tyranids at one point.
Yep.
I never liked that one. But again, I discussed this recently on someone else's show. I was really good at losing, but I had the best looking army. I was a really good painter, but
isn't that what it's all about?
Yes.
Looking good.
They could clear me off the map. I described. They were like the Polish army in 1941 or whatever it was. We looked great until the tanks came.
Yeah, and Stuart's had a number of sort of heartbreaking setbacks in this area, but he's trying to open his own bar with his wife Charlene called Hinterlands that in part is gaming themed.
Really
awesome.
Well,
is it open?
Yeah, I think he wants it to be a place where people can come and do games, and also in the
get drunk and
like the bathrooms are all papered with old Monster Manual and
sweet,
so awesome.
Like that.
Well, now I'm trying to remember from the for the switcheroo. Wasn't it you that was enamored with the Monster Manual?
That was what I didn't play D&D, but I just loved reading the Monster.
Me too. I mean, but I played, but I can't tell you how many times I went through that freaking book.
That one and what was it? Deities and Demigods were like the coolest things to read back then. Even before I started playing, it's like, wow, this is really cool to learn about the deities.
Especially if you have the rare Cthulhu printing.
Ooh.
I mean, it's such a nerd thing to do to like basically just read what is a reference material, but it's a reference material for a thing that doesn't exist.
Yes, exactly. And you're memorizing stats, and you can tell this monster can beat up that monster in a fight.
It's like, how many hit dice does this have?
Well, it's just like, Superman and Batman.
Well, we'll see what happens this weekend, right?
Oh, boy. You see the Rotten Tomatoes. I didn't even look, and someone sent me just the percentage.
I hated Man of Steel, but still, for some stupid reason, I had, like, I was kind of excited. I had, like, maybe this time. Maybe it'll work.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like they pulled so much from Dark Knight. How could they fuck it up? Dark Knight Returns, the comic.
Yep.
Yeah. But Man of Steel, would you agree that, to me, like, if you look at it as a comic book movie, it's crap. But if you look at it like it's a sci-fi, it's actually pretty good.
If I had no association with Superman, maybe I would have liked it. But it has so little to do. Like, it just gets the character so wrong.
Oh, right. Yeah, I agree.
Front to back.
Agreed. Yeah. And you know what's funny, though? Like, my son, who was probably 14 at the time, like, he loved it. Thought it was an amazing movie. To them, it was amazing.
Sacrilege.
I know. But that was his Superman. Isn't that weird? Ooh. And he even defended, and I got a little choked up when he said this kind of, because I'm like, but like he could have saved his dad.
Mm-hmm. So stupid. Like Kevin Costner's in the middle of like a tornado, and he's like, no, stay back. I gotta die for some reason.
Yes. more than a few people have pointed out that the dog would have been the first thing out of that fucking car.
Yep.
But yeah. I'm like, so I'm talking to my son, but he, Superman could have saved his son. But my son said, but he had faith in his father, and that's why he didn't go. And that kind of resonated. I'm like, oh, my boy has faith in me. But
he's playing you.
Yeah, exactly, like a sucker. But again, Superman could have been back there and back and saved him without anyone even fucking seeing it. So yeah, and nothing was worse than Kevin Costner's like, maybe you shouldn't save him. It's like, fuck it, you're a dick.
Don't save the bus full of children. Yeah.
Pa Kent is supposed to be the moral center of that universe. He's
right.
He's the guy who like teaches Superman about all the truth justice stuff.
Exactly, yeah. Because it's not like that came from Krypton. That was all built in by the Kents.
Yeah, it's like they gave Jor-El's lines to Pa Kent and like switched them around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they did a lot of fucked up stuff.
Russell Crowe got the juicy stuff, and Kevin Costner got the tornado. Yeah.
Now, for whatever reason, anytime Russell Crowe was on screen, I was loving it. I even liked the stylization of Krypton, how it was sort of like Art Deco or whatever you want to call that.
Like, they're like flying around in like giant bees or something.
Hey, it wasn't boring. You gotta give it that. It wasn't Superman Returns.
Oh.
Superman got to punch motherfuckers.
Yeah. Superman Returns has one good sequence in it. When that plane crashes, I think it's pretty amazing for about 7 minutes.
Actually, I got a Woody when the fucking bullet hits his eye from the minigun in slow-mo. But after that, I mean, it was like, what are we watching?
Yeah, you could have just watched the trailer for that.
Yeah, it was like scary emo Superman who was like stalking Lois Lane.
Right. Yeah, hovering outside her house.
Creepy Superman. My wife loves him, though.
Oh, what's his name?
Henry Cavill?
Yeah, he's the Atom now. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, no. You're talking about Brendan Ruth.
The guy, yeah. The guy who plays the Atom. He was on. That guy's been. Look, he's been in.
He's good in comedies. Like he's got a fairly nice light touch. I think he just wasn't.
He's got 3 comic book creds now, legitimate comic book creds, because he's got Superman, he's got Scott Pilgrim.
Oh, right,
and he's got the Atom.
Yeah.
I
stopped watching that show, but I thought that he was very good on the as the Atom, because he had this light Boy Scout touch that I think would have been actually great for Superman in a different Superman movie.
I'm still watching it, but I'm kind of like, where's this going?
Yeah.
I'm watching it like as someone else said. I'm watching it because I don't want them to stop making shows like this.
Oh, I don't think that there's any danger of that these days.
Yeah, Berlanti keeps getting greenlit on everything.
Yeah, I think that. I think that the bigger danger is that superhero movies or shows will crush everything else.
Well, I mean, Daredevil kicked ass. Daredevil season 2 was much more moving parts, but I loved it.
I still have to watch.
Okay, well, see, I go and dive fast. I dive in quick, and I even say I think of it. This is part of my job. I got to be on top of this shit. Plus, I don't want some dick to be like, "Hey, spoiler, what?"
Say it that way too, just with a whack.
I gotcha, motherfucker.
You're talking to the Penguin.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly what. Speaking of, do you watch Gotham? Do you follow that?
I gave that about 2 episodes.
Yeah, you and me both. I had a real rough time with it.
Yeah, my wife and I actually kept in with it, and we were rewarded with the, what's his name? Robert Lord Taylor, the one that plays the Penguin. He was the one saving grace of that show.
Exactly. But who would you say was the most ridiculous character on that show? Who was overacting like, oh my God, she was chewing up every...
Oh, Jada Pinkett Smith.
I said she gave it away.
Yeah, well, yeah, but yeah, that was...
No, that's where I was headed. That was where I was headed.
Mm-hmm. Like, was she Catwoman? Was she Joker? What was she?
I think she was trying to summon Eartha Kitt's prowess there, and like her affect in talking there.
She was making a lot of choices, all the bad.
I'll give her that.
But they're bringing her back.
Well, we'll see.
I tell you, here's my theory. I go back. I keep saying it. They should do Batman Beyond. They should give Berlanti Batman Beyond, and just do it in now time instead of setting it in future.
That would be definitely something cool to watch. Get
a nice old Bruce Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, shit, you can virtual cast that right now. I mean, you can get Picard wouldn't work. Why did I say his character name? Plus, he's an X-Man.
Yeah, he's got his own. He's got his own thing.
Yes.
I got to meet him once because of the Daily Show. I wrote him into a script, and they actually got him in. And I had this, Shakespearean actor. He was playing a Mars moon rover, and I had put him in this horrible cardboard moon rover costume that someone had built for him, and he was doing take after take, and I felt great and bad at the same time that I was making this wonderful man just stand in a box and say silly things.
I'm glad you brought up the Daily Show, because you just reminded me of another thing that was going on the first time I met you. The show had just transitioned hosts. Probably, it might have been the first week even, or maybe the first week or 2 tops.
Definitely infancy of Trevor.
Oh, and I was I just remember being the show sucks.
Yeah, that was not the best way to, along with the cat, not the best way to hit her off.
Yeah. I know, but I mean, I was being partly tongue in cheek, because I am sort of that way. But at the same time, I was like a wounded fan who was like, I lost my Jon Stewart, and this guy is not cutting it.
Well, let's skip to the end, though, where you
exactly.
You like the show now.
Yes, we can say. And thank God for Hulu, really, because what would happen is I'd be watching my nightly show, and then, of course, next thing it would do, it would start playing The Daily Show. So I'd be doing something, and it would just autoplay, and next thing I know, I'm like, oh, that's funny. That's funny. and here's really, from an outsider looking in, this was my perspective completely. It felt like, at first, the writers, so you guys, were really still writing for Jon. And I could hear his voice in the writing so much. And it was like, and I'm looking at this guy who's from South Africa, who's not from New Jersey, who has no insider perspective like that. And it feels like the jokes are like that. I'm like, I could do these jokes better because I'm from Jersey. But I got my jersey out. But then you could tell that you guys shifted and you found his voice and you started writing more. It felt like to me from more of an outsider perspective, which made a lot more sense and allowed him to demonstrate his comic sensibilities. So, and then you won me over. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, there's a limit to how much I can say about backstage stuff, but I think that's very true. I think that we had a very short time to get the show back up and running after Jon left, only a few months, which is not a lot of time for it to do this kind of thing. And it was a process of, literally getting to know someone new.
Yeah,
while
in the
we're
meantime,
making a television show.
Yeah, you were still like cranking out the sausage. You know what I mean? Like, we're doing what we always did. So yeah, there was definitely that period, and it was. But now it does really feel like you're coming in your own. And I got to go to the show on Monday night. And first of all, the first thing was, wow, the studio is turned sideways.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah, it used to be oriented the other way.
Yeah. So I was like, wow, it's really long. And
it's
then,
a lot bigger in there now.
Yeah, and I will say that Trevor is more interactive with the audience than, and I only saw Jon live in that show twice, but he was certainly more interactive than I ever saw Jon. And that was kind of cool. So.
Well, he's still working stand-up. He loves talking to the crowds.
Yeah, you could tell that, too. He liked the crowd. He was enjoying the question period beforehand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that might be one of his favorite things to do.
And actually, speaking of stand-up, I have a question for you, Dan.
Yeah.
Like, I know, from listening to the pod and that, you and Elliot used to do, shows at, what was it? It was called Juvie Hall.
Yeah.
And, do you prefer, and you were also with UCB as well, right?
I went through the training program there. I never was
UCB,
on.
like the
Upright
drug
Citizens
company?
Brigade.
Oh, no. I think of the drug company. I'm going back to my corporate days.
But, do you prefer the writing to the, being front and center, doing, stand-up, or, what's your preference?
Yeah, are you improv or stand-up?
Well, I definitely went through the improv thing more fully than I do. Stand-up is something that I do on occasion now, particularly because I get asked to do it on occasion, just because you have a credit like The Daily Show. People will be like, yeah, I'll just give you some time. You don't have to prove yourself in the way that a lot of stand-ups do, which is, I kind of feel bad about it. I would never call myself a stand-up because I get too much respect for them, Yeah. They are out there grinding away every night, the really good ones.
Do you know Casey Jost?
No.
It's Colin Jost's younger brother?
Mm-mm.
Okay, well, Colin is on
SNL.
Yeah, and Casey is head writer for Impractical Jokers, but they do an improv show once a month, and he is like a gifted improv guy. I've never seen a stand-up, but man, is he good. He's just so likable on stage and everything. But
the people who are really good at that are so amazing.
Yeah.
I get to do a Daily Show improv show at the UCB monthly. They've got a showcase for us, and that is, when we do it, it's kind of a delightful clusterfuck because
I like those.
It's a lot of funny people who aren't necessarily improvisers.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a couple ringers in there, people at the show who do it really well, and usually one outsider who's just good at improv. But then there's people who have no formal training and are just funny. And to do that is kind of it's always good because you can always trust the people to like have good ideas and heighten them well and whatnot. But it's also kind of just madness, you know, the sort of madness you get when you have all sorts of varying skill sets on stage together.
I love those. Although, you know when I don't like those? Have you ever seen like massive band jams? Like, oh, we're doing a like a Hall of Fame deal.
Gotcha.
You got like 37 guitar players on stage, and you can't pick out any one of them. It's just noise.
For a second, I thought you were going, like you were saying, musical, and we were talking about madness. I'm like, what, the British ska band? One step beyond.
Our house dealt with that.
In the middle of the street.
So you guys have been, what, 8.5 years, or did you make the 9-year mark?
I think it's still in the 8-year range. I can't keep up anymore.
Kevin just celebrated 9. So, and I thought you guys were within 6 months of him because I remember working it out when I was there. So, yeah, you guys are pretty close to 9. Then.
That sounds right. I mean,
that's impressive.
It's madness. Again.
Yes.
In the middle of our street.
It's just not stopping, really, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, like, I started doing it in part because, like, at that time there weren't that many podcasts, so it seemed like something that I could get in on the ground floor of, and maybe people would pay attention to it. And but early on, I was just doing it for fun. I was doing it because I liked hanging out with those guys, and it didn't necessarily matter. Like, I knew that there was no publicity behind what we did, so whatever audience we would get would have to happen totally organically, and I was fine with that.
And you were a Misty.
After a certain point, once you get fans, once you get people who actually care about what you're doing, like, you don't want to stop.
Yeah,
you just want to keep going.
Very true. And you were a Misty, right? You're MST3K.
Oh, big time.
Okay,
yeah.
Good. Okay.
I grew up with that show, so I think that, and Elliot as well. It's a huge influence on what we do.
I was a tape trader at one point.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was really
literally circulated the tapes.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, Pete and I were in that too. Well, Pete was the one that was taping them. Like, my cable at the one point wasn't getting MST3K, so I actually had to go over his house or one of my other friends' houses that actually got the show.
Did you ever do a Turkey Day?
Oh, the Turkey Day, like, let's see, Night of the Blood Beast with, I think it was season 7 or 6.
I never did a formal one, but I would always watch at least one MST3K, and now it's easy. On a Thanksgiving Day. Well, recently it was on the weekend. I didn't actually do the day.
Yeah, well, I'm not a sports guy, so that's my football on Thanksgiving. To put that on. That's
for Elliot's brother David, right?
Yeah, that's right.
When in doubt for sports, go to Dave.
He was so mad when, apparently, Elliot had him over for Thanksgiving, and he was furious that sports were just denied in the house.
I love that. I love that. I tell you, there was people, I can't remember, I think it was Star Wars, when we were all going nuts for Star Wars. I put out a tweet. I said, for all the people who don't get this crazy Star Wars thing, all I can say is this is how I feel every year at the Super Bowl, because I don't fucking get it at all.
Yeah. No, I don't get any part of the phenomenon. I don't even get the people who are I'm watching for commercials.
No, me either.
You're watching for commercials. These people are literally trying to sell you something,
I
and
know,
you're
oh my
excited
God.
to see it.
Oh, I love you. You're the first person who's ever said the same observation back to me.
Although one thing though for this year with the Super Bowl, Death Wish Coffee.
Yes, and that's one of our sponsors, Death Wish Coffee. They were a small company that Intuit, who makes QuickBooks. They sponsored a big competition. They won, and the grand prize was they got a commercial on.
Oh wow!
Yeah, they won a 30-second spot on the Super Bowl. So, and we hooked up with them, and we're like, I can't fucking believe this. How did this happen? So, yeah, we're sponsoring them.
It's like an underdog sports story, but it's commercials.
Yeah, pretty much. Amazing. But they're actually a really cool company as far as coffee go. I mean, if you like coffee, man, it'll knock you on your ass. I mean, it'll wake you the fuck up. I saw somewhere recently 200% of the caffeine of regular coffee is in it. So
Jesus.
Yeah. So it'll give me some kick. I think it might be higher, but because all I know is when I don't have it, I got to drink like pots of coffee. So anyway, sorry for the plug.
No. You're
paying the bills.
I'm charmed that you're such an enthusiastic user of your own product.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think they do that on purpose. I mean, they send us the shit.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You're like addicted before you know it.
Hey, and just to let you know, like, you guys promote Squarespace. Hey, our website, Squarespace.
Hey, there you go.
I mean, yeah, it seems to. I mean, like, it genuinely seems to be a good product. I mean, I don't think that there's any products actually that we've shilled for that I don't actually stand behind, which is kind of nice.
No Fleshlight ads or anything.
What was that?
I would totally stand behind that. I mean,
Me too.
That's a product that works.
Actually,
I assume. I don't. I can't say that. With
I hear they pay too,
but. It's certainly the only name in that anyone knows. So there's got to be some reason why it's popular.
I hear they pay.
What was that one episode? I remember that, like, again, you guys normally do the Squarespace ads and that, and then Stu came out and it was like something for sex toys. Do you remember?
Oh, no, that was me.
No, that was you. That was right. I'm sorry.
No, it was. It's a friend of the show. Actually, just worked out a side deal with us. Someone from our Facebook group who had put together open source dildos.
Wow, that's awesome.
There, you could plug them in, and there's various ways that you could program them. Like, you could program them so you could say, like, rub up against like a piece of carpeting or someone's hair, and it would do something with the dildo, or like you could program it to like respond to music or stuff like that.
I think we need the robot technology first, though.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at it and I was like, this is too much work for a dildo, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, like mentally, I didn't think that I could wrap my mind around it, but I think it's a great idea for a product for those people who are inclined, like kinky people who are inclined enough mechanically to figure that shit out.
I guess that's true plug and play, I guess, yeah.
Oh, but don't bum. Wait, hang on. Let me get my soundboard up. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's going to become a morning show in here before you know it.
Get one of those.
Sorry, I had to do the crickets. All right, enough of that shit. You distracted me.
Question for you, Dan. Like,
yeah,
I know you guys also, like I was talking about before, like with the writing versus stand-up, you guys also do the live shows.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And in fact, I actually was able to get 2 tickets for your next live show, part of New York City Podfest.
Wow. That one sold out fast. You're lucky.
Yeah, less than 6 hours. That it was gone.
Wow, that sold out faster than TESD. That's funny.
Oh yeah. TESD was going for a couple of weeks.
That's amazing to me because
these guys less than 6 hours.
Which house are you playing?
It's small. It's like
Cake
150
House or
seats.
something.
Oh, you're playing. You got the Cake House. You got the second night.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we didn't make it this year. Fortunately, we're still close with Jeremy. We're going to be doing some filming there.
Yeah.
For the movie. Yes.
Nice.
Yes, but I would have loved to perform again. But I am an alum, so yay.
Hey, any chance of a Cage Miss in May or something, or?
I will definitely do the usual Cage Miss in July, I think. I think that's become a tradition. We're almost to the point now that we have enough of these like made up holidays that it's like fitting in just normal movies with like made up holidays and contest winners.
But what's
is
the
actually
difference?
a lot harder than it used to be.
I think you guys should actually have a Flophouse calendar.
This is the truth, though.
With your months and like pictures of like it's like okay, and here's February with like Elliot eating Popeyes and
Isn't every holiday a made up holiday?
That's true.
I mean, think of any holiday that isn't really made up, and usually it's a made up holiday on top of someone else's made up holiday.
That's true.
Yep.
But now we've got. I mean, yeah, these days we've got Cagemas. So at Christmas we watch a Nicolas Cage movie. We've got Cagemas in July. We also watch a Cage movie. We've got Shocktober.
Smallvember.
October, where it's all horror movies. Oh yeah, and before that, in September, we've got Smalltember, where we just watched
the vast Soviet arsenal. Nothing was more profitable than Optimus Kalashnikova, model of 1947,
What is
more
this?
commonly known as the AK-47 or Kalashnikov. It's the world's most popular assault rifle.
Wait, is this
a weapon all fighters
Lords
know.
of War.
An elegantly simple 9-pound amalgamation.
It's
of
actually
steel
probably the
and
best
plywood.
part of the
It
movie.
doesn't break, jam, or overheat. It will shoot whether it's covered
I'm
in
so
mud or
glad I
filled
have
with
this
sand.
loaded.
It's so easy, even a child can use it. And they do. The Soviets put the gun on a coin. Mozambique put it on their flag.
It's a little long, but
Since the end of the Cold
Genius
War,
still.
the Kalashnikov has become the Russian people's greatest export. After that comes vodka, caviar, and suicidal novelists. One thing's for sure. No one was lining up to buy their cars.
and
The
there
thing,
you-
I'm sitting here transfixed. The thing is, like, the internet has turned Nicolas Cage into this like weird joke, and I feel weird that we're some
perpetuating.
sort of part of that. Yeah, because like
He is
our appreciation of Nicolas Cage is not entirely ironic. Like, we know that he makes a bunch of terrible movies, but we also think he's a really good actor. And
Oh
that's
yeah,
why,
yeah. I'm with you.
He just takes any script that just like falls on his desk.
yeah.
Well, I love even when he'll take those risks that not every actor will take, and that that will either he'll fail brilliantly or he'll succeed brilliantly. So.
Yeah, that's why his bad movies are so much fun. Like
Yeah.
a bad actor in a bad movie is just boring.
Yeah.
Right.
But he's always funny.
He's going for he's like Depp in that way.
Yeah,
'Cause, I mean, let's face it, Depp has done a lot of shit.
yeah,
I love him too, but he's done it. There's a lot of stink burgers in there.
yeah. Well, we did Mordecai, which was quite an experience.
I actually
Mustache the movie.
I actually knew a guy, I want to say about 20 years ago, who was the DP for Dead Man. It was a film called Dead Man, and it was just Johnny Depp in this boat in black and white, and they're kind of like it was like some weird, like it seemed like
It's a Jim Jarmusch movie.
yeah. The same guy who did Bad Lieutenant, I believe.
Oh no, that's Abel Ferrara, or the remake. The new one was Werner Herzog, but Jim Jarmusch did Strangers in Paradise.
The guy who did
Strangers
this.
in Paradise.
The guy who did Dead Man also, I know he did Bad Lieutenant because the guy I'm talking about worked for this guy a lot. So that's why. Apparently there talks about them all being fucking drug addict junkies and crazy shit. And, anyway, but yeah, he said that was pretty much like filmed chaos. If you watch that movie, you can't say Johnny Depp is brilliant because it looks like he's not even there.
The man that wasn't there.
See, but this is what you do. That's like this is great. You've managed to market this just because everybody loves to talk about fucking movies.
Yeah. Well, that was that was the pitch about it. I mean, I was pitching it to like my friends to try and get them into it.
But you were originally thinking that we're going to talk right over the movie.
No, I mean, like the thing was like, yeah, we wanted to differentiate it from Mystery Science Theater, and we couldn't like figure out necessarily how to riff anyway. I mean, like Riff Tracks has done it. I mean,
Yes.
know how to, but we wanted to. Our version of it was the conversation you have at the bar after the movie.
Yeah,
That was kind of the log line of the podcast, if such a thing exists.
The log line?
Yeah.
Is that like log jamming?
I have a question. Like, being that Mystery Science Theater is going to be reborn, like I'm sure you saw the Kickstarter in that.
Sure.
Like, any chance of like the Flophouse like somehow guest starring on the Satellite of Love, or any of the like a crossover like guests onto your pod?
I think that for us to visit would be quite a feat on our part. But you never know.
Hey, can we start a Kickstarter for that? Like get the Flophouse on
Just
the satellite.
a bribe Kickstarter. Just
a very general Kickstarter.
How do you feel about that? Because being as someone, I really DIY'd this. For as far as my show's concerned, I've never gone to anybody for a cent. I've always felt that as a podcaster, that was my responsibility. At the very least, I should be able to afford $400 and buy a recording unit or whatever. How do you feel about that? Do you feel
kickstarting or
about kickstarting?
I think that if people are willing to give money for a thing, it depends on I guess who's kickstarting, what the project is. Like everyone I think kind of made fun of what's his face Garden State for like kickstarting his movie where. Like it seems like the thing was started out for smaller artists, maybe.
Was Garden State kickstarted?
No. What's his face?
I want my money back.
What's his? I can't even.
The guy that made Garden State.
Yeah.
What a fucking depressing film.
Efron? No, wait.
I can't remember.
But isn't it one of the Zach people?
Zach. Yeah, you're right.
It's one of those Zachs.
Zach something.
You know what? The most interesting comment I saw is, speaking of Zach's, I was thinking of Zack Snyder and going back to Batman versus Superman a minute. So this person was commenting about all the phallic imagery in Batman versus Superman from the trailers and everything. And he's like, I don't know what it is. Zack Snyder seems to be obsessed with dick. I'm like, well, maybe he's more like Brett Singer.
Or maybe he was watching Nothing But
Brian
Trouble.
Singer. Sorry, Brian Singer. I stepped on my joke.
But I mean, donations I don't have a problem with in general. Our network that we are part of, Maximum Fun, is sort of on the the NPR / PBS model where we come to you once a year and ask for some money, and that sustains us throughout the year. And I think that that's a valid way of doing it if you're not going to sell out completely to advertisements,
I love the last show, by the way, speaking of your fundraiser.
Oh, yeah.
And I keep thinking, I always want to say Better Off Dead, but I know it's like...
Nothing But Trouble.
Nothing But Trouble.
Yeah, Better Off Dead was an enjoyable 80s movie.
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
But
Nothing But Trouble was a bad 90s movie.
What was so funny about that movie is my wife, who, we're the same age and everything, like, she never saw it. I'm like, how could you not see this movie? This was on HBO all the fucking time in the late 90s, mid to late 90s. So, yeah, and I remember, and I really enjoy when I also love The Golden Child. You guys did The Golden Child.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's always fun when we get back to go back and watch an old movie. Like, we get a little extra juice out of that, because when we're stuck watching the news stuff, it's just like whatever mediocre thing came out. Whereas, older things we get to pick and choose, like the classics, or our audience picks and chooses for us in terms of The Golden Child, where it was a contest winner who decided that we should watch that.
That was a good bad pick. You guys really nailed that one, because there's something fun about that movie. It's like Eddie is trying to be funny, but at the same time he's trying to be action star, and it works.
So aggressively 1980s too.
Yes.
Like, if you grew up,
it exudes 80s.
Yes, I love the comment, Elliot's comment about the flags. I must have saw 500, American flags in the first 5 minutes of that movie. I couldn't recall anything, but I could recall that.
I like the one thing actually from that pod, and it's something we've all run into, like technical difficulties. When you guys were having problems with the...
Oh, yeah.
So, question, do you actually hoard MacBook Airs, or, like...
Yeah, that's true. You kept...
What was that all about?
I would really, I would suggest wholeheartedly that you jump to an external unit to record to. And get off a book, or... just because...
What is that? I need to talk to you like privately, I guess, to get technical advice. I'm one of these people who has learned exactly as much as he needs to put the show out,
as most people,
and no more. But
I interviewed someone the other day for the podcast, and it was actually nice. I finally got this perspective on film, because they were like someone they called the J Train, but he was like, when he started, he went into a studio right from the get-go. And I was like, so you didn't think you wanted to save money or whatever and do it yourself? He's like, fuck that shit. I want to do this. I want to be funny. I don't want to have to learn another job. So
Right.
I had great respect for that.
It is though, and Dan, you're the producer. You're the you are the go-to man for
Right.
for the pod.
I mean,
So I should know better, but I don't.
are you a drummer also?
No, I play a little guitar.
Okay, because a lot of times I'm a drummer, and I know the feeling of like I'm a drummer. If I have all the gear, they have to come here anyway.
Right.
So this way, I don't have to move this thing.
Yeah, I think that's very true. I mean, my apartment, I have all the equipment set up 24/7.
Yeah.
I just got to a point where I'm like, I'm sick of taking this down and putting it back up. Like, no one's coming over and being like, what's this unsightly microphone on your kitchen table?
Yeah.
I'm just, so this place is turned into an ad hoc studio anyway.
You keep it out in case of an emergency pod, situation.
That's right.
Yes.
Now, here's a question. I saw actually, what was it? A couple of episodes ago, Stu was talking about he's got another pod. What was it? Till Death Do We Party? I think it's
Till Death Do Us Party.
Till Death. Yeah.
With 2 P's because it's Def Leppard.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to do an RPG thing.
That would be great. I mean, this podcast started out in much the same way as the Flophouse, in that it's just an excuse for him kind of to hang out with his friend Alex Smith, who is from Fort Wayne, Indiana, where Stuart grew up, and he actually was on our Red Riding Hood or just Red Riding, I can't remember, episode a long time ago. But he's a very funny guy, and he's a musician, and so the two of them were like, we're going to do a Def Leppard podcast so we can hang out and be stupid together. And it's growing in the audience because Stuart has his audience now from doing the Flophouse, so it's a fun show. Although it's really slowed down recently. When it started out, like the first couple episodes, it's like they got through a whole Def Leppard album in an episode talking about it, and I think that the last 3 of them, they've gotten through one Def Leppard song each episode.
I just realized I'm about to become the same schmuck because I'm supposed to be doing
With Dr. Squee.
Yes, a Sherlock podcast, and there's only 10 episodes of Sherlock, so it's like, hey, built-in obsolete.
Well, he was talking about, Dr. Squee was talking about the ability to actually get some
Guess
people,
it and-
because he's across the pond.
Yeah, which would be great because that's a. But the thing,
It's nice to do a closed-ended thing, though, I think.
Yeah.
One
That's
of my
actually what
coworkers
appeals.
at the Daily Show, Trayvon Free, is going to do a Hamilton podcast where he talks about one Hamilton song a show, and he's got a bunch
But
of
isn't
big
the show
names coming
one
in.
song?
What?
Isn't the show one long song? Really?
I mean, it's cut up into tracks. So, but because it's something that everyone loves, and because it's a closed-ended thing, he's been able to get already ahead of time big names. Like he's going to have Stephen Colbert on an episode coming on to talk about a song and
nice.
stuff like that.
Sweet.
But to know that you're going to be done with something in 30 episodes is kind of nice in its own way.
Yeah. I believe me, that did sort of appeal to me, and it's sort of becoming chic to have we're doing this,
Like the ending in sight type of, goal.
Yeah.
yeah. Like Kevin's even doing one with talk salad and scrambled eggs because when
Get the Frasier.
Frasier's done, what are you going to do? I mean, there's talk of them doing Cheers, but then
Oh my God, there's so much Frasier.
but they're doing two episodes a show,
Okay.
and if you listen to their show, they're at the point now where Frasier's playing in the background, and they
Right.
rarely even reference it.
Wow.
I mean, that's the ideal episode of the Flophouse, is where we barely talk about the movie.
Mm-hmm.
The more we can get just juice off of the movie and talk about whatever else we want to, the happier I am.
And you had John Hagagagaju been there
Yeah.
as well.
Hodgman was great. I mean,
He
I
was.
was kind of embarrassed. I don't know. I like to have Hodgman over to your house to watch a bad movie, to your to your apartment.
Dude.
He's
That is so cool.
If there's a band that my wife and I bonded over and sort of we could say we met in 1990, so we grew up together with They Might Be Giants, and
Right.
he is the deranged billionaire. So,
Yeah.
I mean, he'll always, I mean, that would be, I'd be like, what? I'd be like, you're the deranged billionaire, dude.
I mean, you have like this erudite guy, like this Yaley, who like went on to such a crazy career where he was an agent for like a book agent, and then he like worked for This American Life, and then did all those Mac commercials, and was on the Daily Show and wrote books, and and is now like a television actor and all sorts of things.
Yes,
like
he's
have him
very
drop
quirky.
by and be like, welcome to my apartment that smells like a cat. We're going to watch Nothing But Trouble starring Chevy Chase and Demi Moore and
Sorry.
Dan Aykroyd and like the most disgusting prosthetics you'll ever see.
Yes, and a penis nose.
Yeah.
I love John Hodgman.
Hey, my wife's finally back.
I love John Hodgman.
Well, he's the nicest man, so you'll be happy to hear that.
Yes, my wife has bought me several of his books that I never read because I'm a total audio guy.
Hodgman was happy just to sit here and have 3 martinis that Stuart made for him and absorb the craziness. So
He definitely added to the show too.
When Stuart opens his bar, are you guys gonna like make that your place for doing the live shows, or?
Certainly the place for meeting up after the live shows. I mean,
I'm sure that.
that would throw a lot of money Stuart's way.
I'm already like the fact that it's going to be a gaming themed bar to me is I'm already in, so I'll be there. When's this happening?
Well, he's had a lot of heartbreak in terms of just like it's hard to open a bar in New York in terms of all the you got to go through so many inspections. And
Yeah.
So it's been like, I feel bad even mentioning it in a way because it's taken so long. But fingers crossed, it'll be sometime in the next few months.
Cool.
You know what's cool also with your pod, like, you hear it more, especially now. Like, you guys keep getting gifts in the mail,
Oh, yeah.
and it's like, what is the strangest thing like you've actually received? Like as one of these gifts, like I know you get a lot of like DVDs.
A fleshlight? Call back.
There was just a random baseball mitt in a box of DVDs that we got, and then later on it turned out that was intended to go to Goodwill and not to us. I think that's the weirdest thing. I mean, mostly it's all been very, thoughtful. Like there was one woman who, like, this was, like, insane what she sent in. Like, she sent Stuart this beautiful framed sort of fantasy map. She gets Elliot a beautiful framed Taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3 poster. And
the original.
She framed the Flash Gordon comic that I wrote in the cover story for. So, like, the cover is illustrating my story in that issue, and it's just amazing that they would have sent. And another thing, like, I got sent a Talking Head 77 LP with 3 out of the 4 members of Talking Head signed it. Like,
oh wow,
oh wow,
that someone would have done that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was it the vinyl? Or was
vinyl.
Oh, are you a vinyl guy?
I'm not a vinyl guy in that, like, my sound system is woefully inadequate, but I have a record player.
I do too, but I have one more like because I may have a record that I want to transfer to digital, so I have it on my phone like everyone else. Mm-hmm. I've always been an album guy, so I don't need vinyl to convince me of the 20 minutes dedicated to sides. Sorry.
or to one song if you're Pink Floyd.
Yes. I'm already there.
I like that when you put on a record, you're making a decision to, like, listen to a record.
Yeah.
Whereas now in the digital age, it's usually just tracks.
See, but I've always been that guy. So when I buy even digitally, I'll buy a whole album and I'll play a whole album. I've just been wired that way because of my musical background. So, and it's a work. It's an artwork in and of itself. The way you lay out an album. So,
yeah,
my feeling.
No, I think that it's true. Although now I think that with some exceptions, like I think that it's swinging back towards doing things for a whole album, but the way that musicians do things now, it seems like they're just thinking about singles.
Mm-hmm.
So who pulls the musical cuts that they play in the warm-up time on the show, Daily Show?
I have no idea. I'm guessing that it's Trevor himself because I know that John, in the old days, it was a lot of Springsteen and like they play the Clash and stuff like that, and that's very much John.
Yeah, and a lot of Beastie Boys, which apparently have crossed over with both hosts. That's the one thing I was going to notice.
That's nice to know.
Yes, they're both Beastie Boy fans apparently. That's cool to know that they picked that music too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, I think it's. I don't know. That would be the fun of it for me. I mean, like the simplest and most fun decision you would have to make as a host is what music you get to play in between times.
Yeah, what was very interesting watching Colbert make that transition from, I guess, smaller cable show to big network. Like, he had a podcast that was worthless because it was essentially like him bitching that he has to meet with executives for like 15 minutes. That's really what it was. And then maybe one of those executives was there, and it felt like they had him in a headlock. But that was my observation.
Yeah, I never checked out his podcast, but I used to love his show on, Colbert, The Report.
Me too.
And then, I do enjoy the new show, but I know it's a different thing. It's definitely a different beast.
I got to see The Daily Show now 3 times. I got to see The Colbert Show live once.
Same here.
And I was so lucky because Paul McCartney was the guest.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and he did like a little mini private concert, like at least 5-6 songs.
Oh.
And, they film out of order, so you got that. And then, it was very cool. Yes, we got very lucky.
Yeah, we got the sports-themed one, John Calipari.
I got Brian Williams on The Daily Show right before John went out to film his movie, that movie.
Rosewater, yeah.
Yeah, so it was like the week before. And then I got Tom Cruise right before he left.
Sweet.
And Tom Cruise was just weird.
Was? What are you talking about? Was?
It was like, and I ended up seeing the show. They cut it. It was much more awkward if you were in the room because it was just like him not answering questions and laughing, and so John not knowing what to do, and so just continuing to joke on him. It was very awkward.
I can think of few people who are like more different than those two guys.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really what it became. It was like John saying, "So how do you work your abs?" Yeah.
I think that's half irony and half genuine interest on John's part.
So where does someone like yourself go after a Daily Show? Like, where does Elliot go? Where are you guys going? Do you call up Colbert and be like, "Hey, buddy, you got a great show going on over there on CBS"?
Well, I've got a steady job, so let's not talk me out of it.
No.
But it's a wise man who keeps his options open.
Yeah, I think that everyone, I don't know, they go to other shows. I don't have any plans for that right now, but
I'm just trying to see if you have any leads where Elliot's going.
I do know where he's headed,
and you can't say.
Unfortunately, I can't say,
Gotcha.
but I can tease it.
Popeyes.
Yeah.
I can tease it and say that everyone's going to be super excited.
Oh, cool. Is there any ties to the Daily Show in any shape or form, or would that be giving too much away too?
No ties.
Okay.
Is it
totally different thing.
Is it the House of Ideas? Maybe.
What's that?
No, Marvel. Like as Elliot did Spider-Man, the X-Men.
Oh, I mean, anyone who writes comics, like, that's a labor of love. You cannot make any money off of that. Like, not as a full-time job. The one experience I had with comics writing, I think I got a couple $100 for a script, which is not nothing, but
right.
Yeah, you're not going to be living full-time off of writing comics, most people.
Are you a Marvel fan as well?
I was back in the day. I mean,
you seem to be very Superman DC.
No, I've just got opinions about that terrible movie.
It's amazing how people had opinions about that terrible movie, even if you wouldn't think they were fans.
Yeah, I just grew up with superheroes, and I grew up with comics, although I was much more actually of a sort of alt comics guy. My brother, I had older brothers, and so by the time I came around, I'm much older. Like, my brother John is 10 years older than me. My brother Robert's 13.
Oh, wow.
And so by the time I was around, they were into, like, they were juvenile enough to be into comics.
Yeah, you were like an only child. You were psychologically an only child, essentially.
Except for, I mean, my brother John, I think, also sort of like was a third parent at that point.
Yeah, but they say there's like I think it's a 3 to 5 year span. Like the dynamic of early kid, first kid, middle kid, youngest kid. Like I think there's a 5 year span, and once you get beyond a certain amount, it reverses. It doesn't work anymore. So like if you're the last kid and everyone's 10 years older, you're like an only child. So.
Now, is it John that has the Sophomore Lit?
Sophomore Lit, the podcast.
Yeah.
I should plug that for
that.
There we go.
A great idea too. When first time I heard about that, I'm like, what a great idea for a show.
Yeah, he's he's revisiting all of the sort of typical books that you would read in high school.
The forced reading.
Yeah, and both seeing if they hold up, seeing if they're like worth being on a curriculum, but also just discussing them.
What about this Huck Finn? Does this hold up? I don't know. N-word Jim is the first jumps to mind.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that there's stuff on there, like, he was really, like, brutal on, like, a separate piece. I don't know if that's a book that you read. I didn't read it, but it sounded just, like, madness that this was something that was,
I would have been brutal on Huckleberry Finn.
What?
I would have been brutal on Huckleberry Finn because I did do that. Go back and read it in adulthood just to see. And I was like, first of all, it's fucking boring. I'm like, well, how is this a classic? And then, then there's the racist shit on top of that. But, I mean, I know it's written from an ignorant, white man's perspective, I guess.
Right.
Or white kid's perspective.
And
for the time,
taking down Huck Finn.
Yes, taking him down. Yes, I'm going out on a limb here. Putting my balls out on.
Read an American novel? Screw it.
Hey, you know what? But then I'll double down and say you can't go wrong with Moby Dick. And
that is true.
And you can even.
I just reread the first 25 pages of Moby Dick because John is going to do that in an upcoming show, and he's just sort of book clubbing it.
Cool.
On his own Facebook page, cool. And it is amazing. Like it is like people are down on Moby Dick, but that is like it's an adventure story, and it's really funny too.
Yeah. And I mean, I even find the whale section, that like weird, like
right, like the whiteness of the whale.
Yeah, the quasi science of the fishes at that one part. But I find that interesting because it's like this is what these people thought. This is the state of their knowledge. So, good book.
That's quite a book. Yeah. Everyone who thinks Moby Dick is boring, you're wrong. Go out and read it. Give it a try.
How about Rumblefish?
Rumblefish.
I remember having to be forced. Oh, no, that was actually more middle school.
Okay.
Yeah, that was middle school.
Well, actually, talking about writers, like being that you are a writer, like who would be like your main influence?
Like they're books that I read over and over again as a kid that I can point to is like, I don't know if they're my influences, but like I read the annotated Alice over and over again about the Alice in Wonderland stories. It's the full text of the stories, but also annotations that explain all the jokes.
Yeah, I have I have a Wizard of Oz one.
Yeah. It's amazing. Like it really is a whole different experience when you have that kind of background on the story. And I was a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy guy.
Oh, Douglas Adams,
right.
yes.
You're right.
Yeah.
I have a signed copy of an omnibus that doesn't have the last book.
Okay. The fifth book of the trilogies.
Yeah.
So not so long. Thanks for all the fish. That was the fourth.
Mostly Harmless.
Mostly Harmless.
I
love that book.
Really?
I think Mostly Harmless.
It's so bleak.
Yeah, I agree with you.
But there's something about that versus the rest of the stories. I don't know.
I
something
think
that drew me in.
You should have stopped at 3. That's the truth. I really think you should. So Long and Thanks for All the Fish was even like really pulling it.
But at least that gave us a good musical number for the crappy movie that came out.
Yes. Well, but that joke was already there. That was there since the first book.
Yeah. That's true.
That's what they said when they left. So long and thanks for all the fish.
I mean, at least that book had sort of like a sweet ending that tied everything up, and then it just seemed like I mean, Douglas Adams even said it. He's like, I had a bad year, so I wrote mostly horror books.
I loved Restaurant at the End of the Galaxy. I just remember reading that and
Universe.
and having such a good time reading that one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that one was that's the one that was like partly a retrofitted Doctor Who script, right? Though.
Yeah, but if you know the history, like it was a radio play before it was a book.
right.
And most of books 1, 2, and a lot of chunks of 3 were already sort of done. I mean, as the radio play. So he was just rewriting, essentially, for novelization. And then he would lose ideas. And he was not a very, from everything I read about him, he was not a very happy writer.
Really?
No.
He did not love the craft of writing. It was a.
I can understand.
He found it very tedious, and he got
I like
writer's
having
block a
handwritten
lot.
something, but I don't particularly like writing something.
And then the stuff that he did love didn't sell as much, like his
Dirk Gently, or
yeah.
You know what? I didn't get as into those 2 books.
Yeah. I never read them.
Oh, they're worth reading.
I've
they're
heard
not
that.
hitchhikers, but they're funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he had those little wordisms too.
I read he had that also Last Chance to See, which is a charming little book. It's about endangered species and about him going around seeing endangered species before they were gone.
Yeah. I remember that too. Yeah. Didn't he die at 42 or something like that, or?
No, not at
Died
42.
fairly young.
But yeah, he was young.
Or there was some irony of 42 in some of it. I don't remember.
In fact, I think for like when they made that film, like he had died. What was it? The prior year, I think.
Oh yeah,
Right, because he had worked on the script.
Right.
That's right. Yes, and that movie, I say, is really excellently cast, and it was
Casting wise, yeah, I'll
Casting's
agree.
great, and visually, in certain places, it's also really interesting.
yeah, I liked it. I liked it a lot. But yeah, it's cast way ahead of its time. Think of all the people that are in that fucking thing.
Yeah, Zoe Deschanel.
Yeah, Bilbo.
That's right, Martin Freeman.
Freeman, who is a great Arthur Dent.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
great casting.
yeah. Who the heck else is in that? I can't even think.
Oh, Mos Def is in there.
And the voice of the robot was Alan.
Oh, Rickman.
Alan
Yes,
Rickman, yeah.
that's right. Marvin, the paranoid android.
Oh my God, he was so good at that. Spot on.
Yeah.
Pour one out for Alan Rickman.
I mean, the beer that I've been drinking is gone now, but I'm doing it in spirit.
Speaking of Cage, did you happen to catch the making, or what was it, Superman Lives?
the one, that Kev was attached to for a while,
Yeah.
and then who was the Depp's partner in crime?
Nicolas Cage, and it was
Tim Burton was attached to it. And,
yeah, Eddie Munster was going to direct.
I watched a little of it, and then I got it about like 15, 20 minutes in, and I think that the older I get, I'm just like, life's too short to like watch this thing about a movie that never got made.
See, I guess as a documentary filmmaker, I that's like almost all I watch now. So
Yeah.
I can't turn them off.
I have a question for you, Dan. Like what makes you, like for the recent ones, and then of course, some of the classics. What really is the tenets of a bad movie? Like that speaks to you guys.
Are you saying bad, good, bad, or
something
bad?
you kind of liked?
I say so bad it's fun. Those are my favorites.
No, but like what like I know there's tons of movies out there, but who picks them?
I usually pick them. I kind of run a little benevolent dictatorship, or I hope benevolent, on the. I mean, it really is just like I read all of the reviews of pretty much everything that comes out, and I hope at this point, a bit of a sixth sense of like if something is weird or crazy, like rather than just boring, I'll be able to pick it out. And we've watched our share of just boring, so I'm not always on. But I think that's like a lot of the way that I go about it is just being cognizant of all these reviews as they come out. And one person in particular who's a big fan of our show, we have sort of a symbiotic relationship, is Nathan Rabin, who used to write he wrote for the AV Club, then he went to the Dissolve while the Dissolve existed, and now that the Dissolve does not exist, he's back at the AV Club. But he has written a column called My World of Flops for a long time, and some of the best things that we've done have been things that he has flagged that I would not have known existed beforehand, like Food Fight or Guardians of the Highlands. Just, I would not have known that there was, for instance, a Sean Connery voiced movie about a veterinarian who's in Scotland.
Guardians of the Highlands, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that just would not be on my radar without someone like him putting that out there into the world.
When you discussion during the Golden Child, you were talking about Hollywood mismarketing movies. So like marketing something one thing and then finding out it's something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with the 1989 Randy Quaid vehicle, The Parents?
Yes, the one about cannibal parents.
Yes!
Oh, God!
Yes.
I completely forgot about that
marketed
movie.
as a comedy, only to go in and find it like it's Eraserhead weirdness. Like I've been permanently scarred from watching this movie.
I would not have seen the trailer. I think I only knew of it after the fact when I would have had a sense of what it was.
It was very much marketed as a comedy up front.
Wow.
And if you've seen it, you know it's as far from a comedy. And if someone thought that was a comedy, something's wrong.
I mean, it's a black comedy, but it's very dark.
Yeah, it's disturbingly dark. I mean, it's like Eating Raoul is a black comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I mean, this I really think it's horror.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
It's a silly horror movie.
there you go, though. It bends that line, even like the movie you guys were just talking about on your most recent episode.
Nothing But Trouble.
Nothing But Trouble. The one I keep wanting to say, Better Off Dead. It's somebody, is it horror or is it comedy? It's somebody's mess.
It's a bad idea.
Yeah. This got greenlit? But that's right, because Dan Aykroyd could walk on water at that moment because he had Ghostbusters. And that's what he spent his capital on.
Yeah, and it's the one movie he directed.
Oh, my God. He's like, I'm going to cash it in on this winner. Some people have, like, fucking Braveheart. You have Dances with Wolves.
I looked into the background of the movie, and it seemed that what happened was Dan Aykroyd, basically just like Dan Aykroyd got stopped by the cops once, and then he thought, like, well, wouldn't it be weird if, like, these cops were crazy? And that was his whole thought behind.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he might have stole a bit of it from his, the Twilight Zone appearance.
Oh, God. You want to see something really scary?
Yeah, exactly. He's in for like 5 minutes at the beginning.
Well, unfortunately, that does fit the bill if you want to see something really scary.
Yeah, an actor's going to lose his head in this movie. Literally.
Vic Morrow.
Yeah.
Oh.
What was even weirder was, if you go back and look at some of that, is the way Landis like broke down and got weird about it.
Talk about a guy who like also like could do no wrong for a while, and then he just never recovered from that.
Yeah, well, it's hard to recover from that. And then there was all kinds of allegations because was the little girl even supposed to be working? And there was certain Hollywood practices with minors that were commonplace, but like,
no, I mean, it seems pretty apparent that he made all kinds of terrible calls, like he was involved there.
Let's not dance around the obvious here.
But yeah, it's a shame because, like, I don't know, American Werewolf in London is one of my favorite horror movies of all time.
Me too. I'm with you. God, what the fuck? This is too amazing. I got it on Blu-ray just because I want to show my daughter, because my daughter's like a girl version of me at 14. But yes, I agree. Excellent horror movie. It was actually a scary horror movie.
Yeah.
I like The Thing too.
Oh, the John Carpenter.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
that's one of my top ones.
Yeah, mind blower. Now, that's a scary movie.
Yeah, when a head comes off and then grows legs and
and he's like, what the fuck?
Or where they're giving him the old the paddles. And
Oh, yeah. Dude, yeah, my God. And that's all practical. When his arms go into that thing, it like opens up with jaws. Yeah, that is so messed up. Excellent work. Now we're just sucking movies' dicks. Wait, do I have more Nicolas Cage on file? Hang on.
I want to know, what was the hardest movie for you guys to get through? Like,
do you guys have a Manos?
10,000 BC is the one that we always point to because it was just boring. And
which one's 10,000 BC? Is that the?
It was
the 60s thing.
It's like a caveman movie from Roland Emmerich. Who did Independence Day and Day After Tomorrow and 2012, like all of the disaster films.
It wasn't the Scott Pilgrim vehicle with
No.
with you know what I'm talking about? Or was that Stone Age?
No. Year One.
Year one. That was it, Year One.
Yeah, which
I kind of like Year One. I got what they were going for.
Yeah, exactly. It had its moments, but
It was. I think the same kind of theory was. A lot of that movie could have ended up on the cutting room floor. I think that's really what.
Yeah.
And I think they also went into it with, well, the script isn't that good, but we'll make it funny.
Mm-hmm.
But the funny wasn't always brought.
No.
But there was a lot of oil on hair. I'm still grossed out from that. I still shave my body hair completely after seeing that scene.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, I derailed the show.
It's like, and where do you go from there?
Is it Skype lag? We'll blame it on Skype lag.
Yeah.
Well, Dan, I can tell we've tired you out.
No. Well, yes, but that's not your fault. Speaking of podcasting, we had a meetup for the Max Fun Network, my podcast network, last night at Charlene's bar, Stuart's wife's bar, and I was up until midnight drinking with fans before having to get up at 5:45 to get to therapy, which I do before work on Wednesdays.
Gotcha.
So it's been a long day.
Gotcha. Well,
Ouch.
No more need be said. We very much appreciate you giving us the time.
Thank you so much, Dan.
Thank you.
Hey, actually, I should get. Are you a Kevin Smith fan in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. I'm up and down, but there's definitely like stuff I really love, including one of his more recent movies. I really like Red State a lot, actually.
I really enjoyed that one.
Yes, many did. Yes, I agree. Was Tusk too weird for you?
I haven't seen it. I'm very curious to see it.
You may like it. You may like it. Yeah, you may like it. As a podcaster, you may like it.
I love horror comedies, and I love movies with very strange premises.
Then you may like it.
So I suspect that I might actually like it.
And Michael Park from Red State is...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you got Depp in there playing a wacky Frenchman. Or French-Canadian.
But I wasn't as big on Depp's in that one.
I like his choices. I like the at the end with the gun. And I also like the burger stuff, like why is he even crushing them? There's choices he's making that I'm just there. And I also still wonder if if the juggernaut of a podcaster is not a nod out to me.
No, that would be cool. That would be definitely cool.
So, but again, we appreciate you being on. Thank you for answering the perfunctory Kevin Smith question. I could work it in somehow now.
You're very loosely tying it into the theme. I like it.
Well, the fact
that's what I like.
In many respects now, the movie has grown out of the show, which has grown out of Kevin. So, I mean, it's all an extension of it in its own way.
Oh, and actually, from a couple of pods ago, and that all goes back to Robert Redford.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, we can trace it all the way back to Robert Redford.
Yeah, Sundance.
And the Sundance Film Festival.
Huh.
That because Kevin had a breakdown recently at the Sundance Film Festival because he finally made it to the director's dinner.
Oh.
Or director's lunch or brunch, and at that Robert Redford speaks, and he spoke and gave this story where he essentially said, part of the Native Americans believe that anything you took, you gave back. So if you took from the land, you gave it back. Sundance is him giving back, and that like Kevin broke down and started thinking, wow, so if Robert Redford didn't do this, I wouldn't be inspired to do Clerks. You know, he was doing that.
Not just inspired to do Clerks, then also, you know, like, Sundance is what helped launch it,
yeah.
Bob Hawke and
Exactly.
Sundance.
Exactly. So the whole origin point, his origin point, could be traced now back to Robert Redford and making this momentous decision to start Sundance. So I said, wow, now I can trace my origins all the way back to Said.
That's nice.
Yes. He's my grandpappy somehow.
Well, I hope I get to see you over at what's it?
Yeah,
the cake house there.
Yeah, I mean, sure, you'll practically be on stage. So
Oh, cool! Woohoo!
Let's get your plugs out before I'm going to be remiss.
Please.
So you're pretty much at theflophouse.com, correct?
Flophousepodcast.com
That's right. That's
is our website.
Theflophousepodcast.com. That's right. And on Twitter, you're at the Flophouse.
At the Flophouse
Pod. Yeah, I ran into a lot of these
I
troubles
mean,
too.
the easiest way is just Google Flophouse Podcast.
There you
You'll
go.
find all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And you're going to be at, well, that's sold out already.
Yeah, May 21st.
So-
Any chances of a second showing? Or
I mean, well, since it's part of the Podfest, I don't think so. I mean, like when we did the Bell House, we sold out, and so we added another show, and we hope to be back there sometime
That's a bigger room.
soonish. Here's something that, you know, maybe if people get into the podcast, they can look out for is the Alamo Draft House. They've been theoretically going to open one in downtown Brooklyn for so long. But we have done live events up at the Alamo Draft House in Yonkers for a few times, and that's fun. But it's no one wants to go to Yonkers. Not even people who live in Yonkers. So
It's like the Bronx.
whenever the Draft House opens in Brooklyn, you know, we've got a standing offer to do some shows there. So I guess just keep an eye on that and snap up live tickets if they ever come around.
have you guys thought of also doing like the touring Flophouse or something? You know,
We've been talking about it.
Flop tour?
That may actually happen in this coming year.
That'd be awesome.
It's in discussions.
How big a tour? Were you talking coast to coast, or you just do like a mini tour?
or we're
Talking
talking global.
major, I think it would be maybe 3 cities that aren't New York. But again, that's in the early stages right now.
Yeah, we're doing Brooklyn, Queens, and Jersey. Yay!
No, I think that we would go. I think we would try and get out to a different coast. I think that we would definitely do that.
Very cool.
If we did it.
Actually, one of the best stories that you told that will probably end up in the film is when you guys say that John said he was in Europe or something, and someone said, "Oh, and tell the guys in the Flophouse that we said hi and we love the show."
You know, that's still Ronnie Cheng, one of the new correspondents,
He's
came up
so
to me and said
funny
that in
guy.
Australia they told him to say hi to us. So that's the beauty of podcasting.
It really is. It's such a cool thing. Like, I'm going up to Toronto to do some filming. Going to film Scott Thompson.
Kids in
beautiful.
the Hall.
Yeah, next week. And like, I got someone picking me up in the airport who's a listener. And I'm pretty sure I'm staying at his place. So, you know, it's like,
Sweet.
yeah, resources and it's all fun. And I'm going to have a better experience there than if I went by myself, stayed in a hotel, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because someone's going to show me the town. And
Right.
yeah. So I love podcasting and I love social media. So
Yeah. I mean, that's in a lot of ways, you know, I think that we sort of touched on it before about like performing and writing, but in a lot of ways, like, I think as much as The Daily Show is an amazing thing and it pays all my bills and it's changed my life and it's wonderful, like the favorite thing I do is doing the show because it's something that is me, you know, I'm front and center and I'm getting to connect with people out there in the world.
and you're just goofing off with your friends, and
Yeah.
and others people are enjoying it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's a wonderful thing.
And there's many of us.
Well, thanks again, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
And there we go.
Yay.
Mr. Dan McCoy from the Flophouse. The floppity Flophouse.
And
Yeah,
don't forget
baby.
Archie.
And don't forget Art. We'll do this too. Yeah, baby. Woo. I wish I had fucking bells and whistles and shit. All I could do doesn't have the same impact.